So, good afternoon. My name is NAHLA MASTURA. Today we will discuss to you about groundwater. We all know that Earth is roughly 70% of water. However, only 3% of this water is fresh water. Much of this fresh water is frozen in glacier. You will find some of the water in rivers, lakes, streams, etc. But almost 30% of this fresh water is groundwater. But first, what is groundwater? Groundwater, water present beneath Earth's surface in soil, pore spaces, and in the fractures of rock formation. Groundwater is the water that finds its way between the gaps of rocks and sediments underground. As the water seeps into the ground, it may find its way into an aquifer. The water that you draws from under the ground is an example of groundwater. So, what is the difference between groundwater and surface water? Surface water is found above the Earth's surface. Surface water can be contaminated by the rainwater, runoff from houses or homes, roads, and parking lots. Surface water includes lakes, rivers, streams, etc. While groundwater is found under the ground, and doon mo na matatagpuan yung aquifer. As you can see here, surface water found on the surface. Groundwater here, yun nga sa ilalim ng lupa. Then we have here the water table. Water table is the elevation of water in the aquifer. Sources of groundwater. Groundwater is also one of the most important sources of water for irrigation. Unfortunately, groundwater is susceptible to pollutants. Groundwater contamination occurs when man-made products such as gasoline, oil, road salts, and chemical get into the groundwater and cause it to become unsafe and unfit for human use. So when we use chemical, it can contaminate our soil and also water that can affect the human's health. Many of the chemicals used by industry in leak or will pour into the ground to evaporate. So whether it's up and down there, waters and how we use it matters. We may not be able to see it every day, but groundwater makes our lives possible. How is groundwater found? Groundwater is a part of overall hydrologic cycle. It gets into the ground mostly through the rain seeping into the soil, a process called infiltration. So, below the table water, all the openings in the rocks are full of water that makes move through the aquifer to streams, springs, or well from which water is being withdrawn. So, the question is, how does all this water end up in the ground? So, yun nga, it is part of water cycle. So, pag umuulan, some of the water are napupunta sa plants and some of water runs off the soil into the streams, lakes, or even the ocean. And other water gets stuck on the surface and eventually evaporate back into the air. Meanwhile, some of the lucky water droplets get to travel down through the surface deep underground until reach the water table and become a part of aquifer. Is the groundwater and fresh water are the same thing? Yes. The groundwater contained in aquifer is one of the most important sources of water on Earth. The rest is found at the surface in streams, lakes, rivers, and wetlands. So, about 30% of our liquid fresh water is groundwater, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So, aquifer. Aquifer is a layer of porous substrate that contains and transmits groundwater. The word aquifer comes from the Latin word aqua or water, and fer to be bear or carry. Aquifer literally carry water underground. So, aquifer are large underground rock layers saturated with groundwater. And aquifer is not an underground river but large porous layers of rocks. So, the study of water flow in aquifer and the characterization of aquifer is called hydrology. Hydrogeology rather. So, we have two types of aquifer, which are unconfined aquifer, confined aquifer. Unconfined aquifer, an aquifer that is connected to the surface and thus its upper surface can rise and fall. While in confined aquifer, an aquifer bounded above and below by impermeable beds or layer. So, as you can see here at the picture, unconfined aquifer is open talaga siya. Aquifer, same sila ng location ng water table. Open talaga siya. While in confined aquifer is yung upper and yung above niya and below is meron siya, napapalibutan siya ng impermeable layer, which are aquitard and aquilud. Aquitard is an impermeable layer that hinders or prevents water movement. So, ang confined aquifer talaga is closed talaga siya. Aquitards is a zone within the earth that restrict the flow of groundwater from one aquifer to another. Aquitards comprise layers of either clay or non-porous rock with low hydraulic conductivity. Just like what I've said a while ago, aquitard is an impermeable layer that hinders or prevents water movements, and it composed of clay and non-porous rock with low hydraulic conductivity. So, ang groundwater are very important not only in animals, plants, but also in humans, like in civil engineering. It is an overall multitask. Kung walang water, hindi ka makakabuild ng building. Like yung cement or any materials na need ang water. Groundwater is a source of recharge for lakes, rivers, and wetlands. Then, ang groundwater is, kung walang groundwater or kung walang lakes, mga rivers, wetlands, hindi makakaproduce ng electricity ang lahat ng manufacture. And also, many sustain would end up dry. Like, groundwater helps grow our foods or plants, and it gives us a fresh water to drink. And groundwater is an important component in many industrial processes. As an engineer, it is important to them to study what is all about groundwater. Dapat alam nila yung mga materials na dapat nang gagamitin na hindi nakaka-contaminate sa ating groundwater. Then, dapat, bago sila magpatayo ng isang project like yung mga water system supply, dapat alam nila yung gagawin nila, kung ano yung dapat na gamitin, kung gaano kahaba yung mga tubo para walang problema. Then, as an engineer, dapat alam mo kung saan nakatago yung mga pipeline system. Kasi, kung hindi mo to alam, may tendency talaga na magkakaproblema. Like yung maghukay ka, then pag may mabutas doon, is malaking problema na talaga yun. Then dapat, alam mo talaga yung mga bagay na patungkol sa iyong project. And overall, groundwater is very important to us. So that's all. Thank you.